Hey guys, thanks for visiting my channel Faith Evolved. This is your host Jay, and if it's your first time here, welcome. And please check out the video section. And if any of the titles resonate with you, take a watch, take a listen, see if you enjoy it. And if you do, I would definitely be very humbled to have your subscription. And also, if you like this video, please hit the like button, share the video on social media, and last but not least, hit the notification bell below so that you get notified anytime I release any new videos. And of course, you're also welcome to comment. I love to read everyone's comments and I respond to them as much as I can. All right, so today's video is going to be all about PTSD, specifically church PTSD. Yes, I think it's a thing. I think that it's something I personally struggle with, and I want to kind of talk about it and share my story and share, how I feel about this topic, and hopefully a reasonable, pragmatic way forward. Stay tuned. All right, so before I begin, I have to geek out a little bit here. As I mentioned in my previous video, I'm doing this video on my iPhone 13 Pro Max, but I saw the ProRes feature available, so I said, let's try it. And it looks pretty nice. I know it's going to take me about 5 years to transfer the files from my Lightning port to my computer, but yesterday I decided to call my ISP and upgrade my internet speed because I'm doing like 500 gigabytes worth of backups in my cloud drive. So I said, you know what? While I have the higher speed, I'm going to do an upload before I call them tomorrow to downgrade back to the original speed that I had. So take advantage of that while I can. So anyways, about today's topic, church PTSD. So I've been meaning to talk about this for quite a while. It's been on my list of topics to do a video on. But I saw this in my 2 years memories 2 years ago on my Facebook memories. And I said, you know what? Today's the day. On October 13, 2019, I wrote, apparently, I am someone who just really, really needs proof of when something not only works for me, but also, just as equally, when it doesn't work for me. After 30 years of going to fundamental Christian churches and services and events, I am completely done. No more tormenting myself or subjecting myself to it. I am tired of going to others for help on how to communicate or experience with God. I still believe in God and Jesus, but it's time I experience God on my own. After all, it's supposed to be a personal relationship. So now as I'm reading this, a couple grammar-related issues, but hopefully you get the gist. I was done. And what actually precipitated this post was going to an event that Assemblies of God Church was putting on called the Encounter with God. And I remember going there. I was completely distraught. I was going through a dark night of the soul. I was struggling hardcore with the worst anxiety, depression, and OCD that I could possibly imagine going through. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. And going through that was hell on earth. And, it was just so hard. I was desperate for something. I remember, sitting in the car with my wife at the time, after I've just moved down to Virginia, and finally I had a moment to try to relax, but then all the anxieties came crushing on top of me, and I just started screaming, Jesus, help me. I was so distraught, and I was like, I went to the ER. They gave me like some Ativan that calmed me down a little bit, but the hell had only just begun, where I was struggling for about 2 months, just with the worst possible symptoms. I wasn't eating. I was losing weight, like precipitously losing weight. Just because I wouldn't eat. I would be laying in bed all the time, crying all the time. It was the worst. And I was desperate. Someone said, just go to this event. And I was like, you know what? I've been to one of these events before. I know what to expect. I know it's going to be all this, Christianese and just the different rituals and things that Christians do, like, casting out demons and the worship services where they ask people to raise their hands, and some people are speaking in tongues, and there's all these different things that I was used to, but at the same time, kind of like realizing that it wasn't working for me. And I had gone to church for, like I said, at this point, 30 years, and tried everything that was recommended to me to do to try to experience God's presence, healing, and just restoration, so that I could just feel at peace and whole. And nothing is more there's no more torture than when you're standing in, a room full of people, you know, they're all raising their hands praising God, and you can see the joy on their faces, and they're smiling, and just the ecstasy and the bliss that they feel, and you're standing in your own personal hell. It's like there's a bubble around you that's like God's presence can't get in no matter what you do, and you're trying everything. You're pleading to God. You're going up to people, begging them to pray for you. You're hoping that this is the time that God's going to come through for you and heal you, change you, and just completely change your life. And it's just like it was just another time where I went and I was like, maybe there'd be something here, maybe, just maybe I'll try, fine. And it was probably the 30th or 40th time that someone had coerced me to go to, of course they did it in a friendly way, but they wanted me to go to this Encounter with God retreat. And I remember going there, and I was struggling really hard, and there was a couple good moments, and those good moments had to do with when I was sitting down talking to just different brothers about my life and them trying to encourage me. Those were probably the best moments of that retreat. But the rest of it was hard, because there was times where they would have me watch a video of Jesus getting beat so bad from the Passion of the Christ movie. And that's what he did for us, for our sins, and just different things that I knew at that point I no longer agreed with, because I had already been reading the Urantia book, and had started reading A Course in Miracles and other spiritual books and spiritual authors and spiritual gurus and teachers on YouTube. I already had decided that I'm no longer a traditional Christian anymore at this point, but it was hard, because there's still a part of me that held out that maybe, just maybe, God would still use the Christian church to help me. And I don't want to sound like I'm cynical, or that I have a hate for Christianity or the church, because I do believe they genuinely tried. But I had so much disappointment and disillusionment that even to go into a church at that point in time was hard, because I would see other people happy, and I would hear them preaching things that I knew wasn't really how it was. And I at this point in time, I still sometimes wonder how certain people can, sit through a service, when they're teaching things that are, to me, antiquated, or to me that are antithetical to the nature of God and the way Jesus displayed the Father. And, this is talking, preaching on hell or judgment, or the things that God supposedly commanded the Jews to do in the Old Testament in his name, some really evil things. So it was hard for me to justify that, going to church and sitting there listening to everything they're preaching, knowing where they're coming from with things and the foundation for things. So it was hard, and I remember calling up my wife at the time and saying, I need you to come pick me up and take me home. I can't do this anymore. And I literally just in the middle of one of their sessions, I got up and walked out, and I walked about a quarter of a mile away from the cabin that we were in, and I sat down on a bench, and I just sat there in a state of confusion, just staring at the pond and thinking, what is this? Like, what am I don't understand what I'm supposed to do. My soul felt like it was crushed. I felt like I was invisible to God, or there was something wrong with me that I couldn't receive God's love and feel his presence and get restoration. And it was a very confusing and hard time. So fast forward maybe a couple of weeks, or maybe 3 weeks, I had decided to go to church again. And, I think there was one point where they had me go up to they had people go up to the front to the altar to have their, people lay hands on you and pray. And I remember having done that. And I just remember, just feeling so desperate and just so dark inside, so hopeless. And, one of the guys, who was running the retreat was there. I think he was the one that was praying for me. And there was a point that I felt so like on the lowest. I can't even put into words how just dark and hopeless it felt. It was lower than the lowest point of the lowest vibration I could possibly imagine. And I thought maybe if I just lay down like everybody else does, and just not really faint, but sometimes you'll see people who lay down and just on the ground and go like this, and and like some kind of like a prose or like a surrender type gesture to God. I thought maybe if I do that, he'll get me. This it was kind of like my last ditch effort to give this Christian thing a try. And And I kind of felt bad, but I remember the guy, he's like, oh, good, 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 God's doing, yeah. I was acting it through. I was hoping that maybe this act, this gesture would just make God change me or something. And I laugh now, but back then it was a terrible feeling, realizing that I'm laying here on the floor and I feel nothing except for just hell going on inside my soul right now. And it's like I felt like, and I remember saying this to my dad when I was younger in the car, like I feel like I'm the only one with whom Christianity doesn't work for. And that just crushed me, realizing that, there's no hope here. So I lay there for about 5 minutes, and then I got up and I just sat back in my chair, numb, and just felt like, well, this has been a big waste of my time. And that might have been around the time, either that event or the retreat, that I decided I'm done. I am so done with this. It doesn't work for me. And it took me a while. It took me about a year or so to get to the point where I could understand what was going on here. And that post that I put on Facebook really explained it quite well, that I need to experience God on my own. I need to find God inside me. He's not outside me. And that was around the time that I started reading A Course in Miracles. And I remember laying in bed, just reading A Course in Miracles. And there was something about it, because I didn't really quite understand it. I had already read the Urantia book. I already felt like the Urantia book was the revelation to mankind, and that was the ultimate truth. But I was like, I'm still kind of seeking. I think there's more, and that was around the time I started doing the lessons in A Course in Miracles. And I remember laying in bed, suffering hardcore with my OCD, and one of my OCD symptoms was, my eyes blinking or my eyes moving around looking at things. And one of the lessons actually was, look around at different things in the room. It's right here, lesson 1. Nothing I see in this room, on this street, from this window, in this place means anything. Lesson 2, I have given everything I see in this room, on this street, from this window, in this place, all the meaning it has for me. Number 3, I do not understand anything I see in this room, on this street, from this window, in this place. And it just keeps going. If you read the lessons now, you're supposed to do them each day, one lesson for each day. But I remember doing that while I was in my own personal hell, and realizing, now that as I look back, I go, wow, that was so profound. Jesus was cutting through the fog and cutting through the bricks and the hellfire that was blocking, me from being able to feel his presence and for me to let love in, because that's really what the problem was. I had subconsciously, built up a wall against love. And really the whole point of A Course in Miracles is not to help you understand love per se, but to remove the blocks from love. And that's really what I was going through. I had completely blocked out love somehow. And it wasn't intentional, because I had been seeking honesty my whole life. But that was the biggest thing. And for anybody out there watching this video that had a similar experience to me, where you just always went to church and never felt like it never did anything for you. And maybe there was some times here and there that you had some, nice experiences, and, I had times where I enjoyed a sermon, or I had enjoyed some fellowship, but that was about it. It was the rituals and the doctrine and the scripture and all the, different things that people, said that worked, that didn't work, that got me disillusioned. And even today, I have a hard time going into a Christian church, because it brings up those memories and it brings up those feelings, and so and obviously I don't feel like I relate to anybody anymore, because I'm different now. I'm beyond, and I always felt like I was different too. So I guess, I know I'm on the right path now, because now that I've been doing these lessons and I've been meditating and, and trying to seek God within instead of from without, I've been feeling better. I've been feeling more confident in myself, and I've been feeling glimpses of God's love, and just that the kind of warm feeling inside when that you're God's son. Like, I didn't get that for 35 years of my life, and it took me going through all this, to finally get to the point where I had to realize I can't live vicariously through somebody else's faith. It's not going to work. And I almost feel like I'm kind of glad that it happened, because now it's like my faith is so strong, because I went through all this and I discovered on my own what matters and what makes sense to me and how God can get through to me. And I realized that God can get through to people in different ways, depending on how they were raised, how they were treated, even when they're growing up, by their parents and their peers at school, and by the church, and just many other things, even like your genetics. and the part of the world you live in, what religion you were a part of. So there's so many different moving parts and variables that form your worldview and your perspective on things. And, I needed something super real. And the Arantia book and A Course in Miracles was there for me. And Jesus, through those, as well as my brothers who are, involved in both of those projects and those books, that were there for me when the church wasn't. And that's not to say the church isn't there for people. They are there for people, but there's different, the church, just like anything else, heavy metal is not for everybody, okay? I'm a huge heavy metal fan. I'm wearing Believer here. I've had this shirt for like 10 years. It's way old, worn out and faded, but I love that kind of music. It gets to my soul. It gets to my heart. It makes me happy. I get into it, but other people would listen to it and probably feel depressed or scared because it's heavy and loud and sometimes, very crass and harsh. But for me, it makes me feel great. So I had to realize that's what it comes down to. I believe God can use anything, and you just got to find what works for you. And I do believe, 100% that God is for everybody. It's just a matter of, you need to sit down and just like really think about what makes your heart sing, what really gets through to you, and find God through those things. Find the truth, beauty, and goodness that leads to God through whatever you are passionate about, for whatever makes you, whatever resonates with you. And it might not be any religion. It might just be service to others. It might just be, self-love. It might just be, you just enjoying your life. It's just all these religions. It was one person. This is what it comes down to, folks. One person found out speaking in tongues works for them. And they made a religion out of it. Swinging from chandeliers and, getting slain in the spirit. It worked for one person. And I'm sure it worked for other people as well. So they decided, well, these 5 people or 10 people that it happened for, it must be a thing. So let's make a religion out of it. Let's make a denomination, And that's the unfortunate thing, because you feel like if you don't have those experiences at church, something's wrong with you. If you don't feel God when you're trying to force speaking in tongues, or when you're raising your hands in worship, and you find yourself beating yourself up because it doesn't work for you, or you don't enjoy their way of doing it, or you don't enjoy worship music, or you don't enjoy a church service, what else can I say? What's the heart of God? The heart of God, he want to see you happy. He'd want to see you at peace. And that's all you really want at the end of the day. So if it's not giving you peace, don't do it. If it's giving somebody else peace, be grateful, be happy for them. Because that's where it also starts as well. You need to, be grateful and accept, and don't fight it. But also be true to yourself. I hope this has been helpful to folks out there. If you have any experiences with being in the church and being hurt or disillusioned, reach out to me. I'd be glad to talk to you about it. I do believe that God uses everything for His good and for your good. So in the end, it's all going to work out. That's the greatest conspiracy theory. God bless.